Hello everyone, and welcome to today's Across the Obelisk video. In this video we will be examining how to build the OTK one turn kill Sylvie build, how you structure the entire team, perks, cards, and how you go into late game and what you can expect. This team consists of Bree, Magnus, Gustav and Sylvie. Bree and Magnus's perks are almost identical. Under sight, we go for 3 additional stacks of sight, but they expire on turn 1. This is because you want to kill everything on turn 1, so we don't really worry about turn 2. We go for additional vulnerable stacks and powerful stacks, just to make sure that Bree can buff Sylvie as much as possible. And for Inspire, we go for 1 additional card at the start of combat. When looking at Magnus, they are almost identical, except Bree gets 3 extra points into giving speed, because she can give some speed, whereas Magnus will put his points into courage at the start of his game, just to make sure he can have a little bit of tankiness, because he will be a tank by the end of Act 4. With Gustav's perks, we will also be going for more sight stacks, but also we will be putting points into stealth and make sure stealth gives extra resistance. This is because by Act 4 you will have a smoke bomb, which will give stealth to all of your allies and give them just a little bit of resistance. He will be going for the vulnerable on the right to increase slashing and piercing resistance reduction, 1 extra card like everyone else, and also on turn 1, stanza 1 will give him an extra inspire stack. For Sylvie's perks, we will also be going for additional sight stacks, but her stealth will be 25% damage per stack as opposed to 20%, just to maximise her damage coming out of stealth. We will also be making sure that Sharp gives her extra piercing damage, and her vulnerable will be the middle one, because someone needs to take it and she can afford to spend the points on it. We will be going for powerful being 10% per charge, but all of it expiring on turn 1, and 1 extra card of Inspire as well. When looking for items for this team comp in the starting city, you're going to want to look for anything that increases your damage. So something like War Banner can be good on Magnus, or Gauntlets can be good on directly on Sylvie. Something else that's really useful is Slingshot, because it fires 1 little pebble at the start of each turn for Sylvie, and that does piercing damage, which scales off of all the things you're building. But you will be doing a lot of divinations with this, because you'll be looking for quite specific cards, so I try not to spend too much in the shop. I don't bother with pets until Act 4, where maybe I'll get Oculi, but they're really quite a low priority. In the first shop, you want to be doing so many divinations. The cards you'll be looking out for are, for Bree and Magnus, you'll be looking for Helping Hands, Intimidates, Piercing Howls, maybe some Sharpens as well. If you get really lucky, Enrages. And in this example, a Battle Shout. I already have a Battle Shout on Bree, but this is a purple one, so I'm going to do a straight swap for that. They're basically looking for the same cards, and these are all just buffing cards in Act 1 and Act 2 and Act 3. Later on, Act 4ish, you maybe want to specialise Magnus into doing some more defense. When you're looking for Gustav cards, you want to be looking for more chance of accuracies, find weaknesses, trace. You want to have 2 traces by the end of the first shop. A setup, an upgraded setup is also very good. You are not looking for any damage dealing cards with Gustav, Bree or Magnus, so it's all just support cards. When looking for cards for Sylvie, you maybe want to look for a Volley. Adrenaline is the most important card you can find on Sylvie. You want to have maybe 2 or 3 of them by the end of it. A Vanish is also quite a good card. I don't tend to go for Shadow Step because I'm not really a fan of it. But you also tend to pick up a few more quick shots if you can find them. But you want to basically use all of your gold to do as many divinations as you can, just to remove as many of the unnecessary cards as you all have. After completing the divinations, on Bree you want to buy 2 Helping Hands, 2 Intimidates, a Piercing Howl, and that should be enough for this immediate stage. You then want to remove all of your Spike Shields, all of your Invigorating Blows, and then prioritise removing your Intercepts while you can. In this case I'll remove my Spare Battle Shout, you only need 1 of them. I will remove now my Intercepts as a priority, and then remove as many Pommels as you can. You then want to upgrade your Piercing Howl so that it applies vulnerable stacks, and I do sometimes like to upgrade the Battle Shout, but in this case I've got a purple one. I'll change this Intimidate to be a yellow one, but that's about all you do on Bree at this stage. On Magnus similarly, you buy 2 Helping Hands, 2 Intimidates and a Piercing Howl. You then remove yourself down to 15, so try and get rid of your expensive cards first, your Rends, your Barricades and your Defends, because you will not be doing any of that. You want to remove your Intercepts as well, and the last card you should remove are your Fast Strikes. If you get lucky divinations, you can remove more of these bad cards, but for now, that's all I can do. You want to make sure your piercing howls do vulnerable stacks. I also like to upgrade the fast strikes to be 0. They're quite cheap to upgrade and you can do some nice supporting damage. When adding cards to Gustav's deck, you want to add 1 detection, 1 chant of accuracy, 1 song of celerity, 2 traces, and 2 vigilances for now. You then want to remove all of your 2-cost cards, so that's all your buff cards and your annoying whistles, and then you want to remove your whispering lies as well. Once again, the luckier your divination, the more cards you can get rid of. After that, I tend to also get rid of Power Slave, and Shivs are the last ones I get rid of. When upgrading cards, I upgrade the Vigilances to draw 1 card, the Song of Celerity to be innate, the 2 Traces to be innate and be able to be buffed on heroes, and the Detection to be innate as well. I then upgrade all the Chant of Accuracies to cost 0 mana as well. And that's my upgrade tree done. If I have a setup, I always go for the blue setup, and the Adrenaline is just a nice little bonus card here if I need it later on. When adding cards on Sylvie, there's not too much to add, so I first of all removed my bonus camouflage that I found from the divination, and my goal with Sylvie is to remove these ice shots and look for my multi-shots every single round. And so I start by adding 2 more quick shots and a chant of accuracy. And so I remove all 3 of my ice shots because they are not valuable to me. And that's all I can really do. I would have liked to have found more stuff in the divination, but in this example, this would just have to do. When upgrading cards on Sylvie, I upgrade the Chant of Accuracy to cost 0, all of my quick shots to cost 0, and if you want, you can upgrade your multi-shots or rapid fires to do slightly more damage as well, but these aren't particularly necessary. But if you have the spare shards, it certainly can't hurt. With my remaining shards, I am now going to add an upgraded Sharpen to Magnus's deck. This is because Magnus has a less mature deck than Bree at this stage. If it was the other way around, I would put this on Bree, but an upgraded Sharpen can just make Sylvie just do a little bit more damage. I will now remove my remaining Intercept just to tighten Magnus's deck. Right, now I'm going to talk through how a typical turn may play out. Your priority is to make sure that all the enemies are slowed, and that will be either on Bree or Magnus's Piercing Howl, but make sure that all your people have a turn before the enemy does. In this example, we have these annoying squirrels or ice. They're really fast, but I was unable to slow it. Ideally, I would find a Piercing Howl to slow everyone down. You want to make sure that you look for whoever has the highest piercing resistance, which is the arrow, bow and arrow symbol in the top left, and that's who you apply Intimidate stacks to. You want to prioritize getting everyone down to 12 stacks of vulnerable on the enemy and buffing Sylvie with powerful stacks and helping hands. If I have a helping hand on Bree, I tend to buff Magnus, and if I have a helping hand on Magnus, I tend to buff Sylvie. Gustav I don't think needs a helping hand because his start is very much predefined because of his innate cards. You want to use both traces on your Sylvie, and Sylvie in pretty much every case is looking for a double multi-shot. Later on you can replace that with she wants to find her volley, or later on you can replace that with she wants to find her rain of arrows. The goal of this build is to stack Sylvie as big as you can so that you can one turn kill all the enemies. That may not always be possible, but it can be done about 75% of the time if you get lucky. Sylvie here, you want to play your 0 cost first, so Chant of Accuracy on yourself and then double multi-shot. And anything that survives you can finish off with your 0 mana quick shots. And this will get you through most fights in the game. When you encounter a single target boss like this, the tactic does not really change, except that you may prioritize using Intimidates over Piercing Howls because you only have a single target. Bree and Magnus are fairly similar, just keep debuffing the enemy and buffing your allies. You can see here that they barely spend any mana, but just play everything really, just try and hurt a boss as fast as you can. With Gustav, similarly, you just play your, you know your starting hand's going to be the same pretty much every single time, but for Sylvie, you're now no longer looking for your multi-shots, you're looking for your rapid fires down here. These are your best single target hitting moves that you have. So I probably want a camouflage or maybe a falcon shot and my rapid fire. So I'm going to now look for it. I'm going to throw away these cards here just so I can hopefully find it. and then carry on debuffing as normal. Playing Gustav very much plays itself. Your Shivs are your lowest priority card. I could have arguably got rid of my Song of Celerity here because we don't need the speed, but whatever. This is a turn 1 kill anyway. And here we go. We play Charm of Accuracy, Camouflage, and then Rapid Fire. And that should get us pretty close to killing the boss. And if not, then I can finish him off with all these quick shots. And there you go. It's as simple as that. Later on, you maybe want to replace the Rapid Fire with a Barrage, but it is a legendary card and it is very hard to find. But if you can't find the Barrage, you go for Poison Spray instead. But we'll talk about that more in a second. When leveling up on Bree, at level 2 you want to go for defensive strategy because your skills like Intimidate and Piercing Howl will let you draw more cards and help your allies with a little bit more extra armor. You then want to go for Tactician, which will make your skills cost 1 less, which is just fantastic. It means you can play more of the Piercing Howls and stuff. After that you go for Command and Conquer, which means your skills will buff allies with powerful stacks and Vitality and Mitigation. And finally, Tireless is not a bad option either, just 1 extra energy at the start of the game. On Magnus, the level 2 is not particularly good, so I tend to just go for Follow Up or Wolfguard, and I don't really care, and just remove them at the first chance I get. After that you want to go for Defense Mastery, because by the end of Act 4 you maybe want to make Magnus a tank just for the last boss, so that makes your tank items a little bit cheaper. At the next level we go for Valiant Defender because it helps the allies out by giving some card draw and some armor whenever you play defensive skills. It's not that important. And at the end, Tireless once again gives you 1 extra energy. Leveling up on Magnus is not that great, to be honest with you. On Gustav, my level 2, I tend to remove whichever one I get here, so they're not important to me. I don't think they help the 1-turn kill build. After that, I tend to go for Shrill Tone because I build my Chant of Accuracy to cost 0, whereas you could augment this Gustav build and go with Fanfare so that your Chant of Accuracies give you 1 mana back, but I've always preferred Shrill Tone just so I can play them once, get Sylvie to 50 stacks as fast as I can, and then forget about using Sharp and use the rest of my rotation. But there are builds out there that do use Fanfare. After that we go for Encore, which basically gives you another Chant of Accuracy for free, which is always very useful. And after that, the last level, I tend to go for Choir, just because you get some mild benefits. The last level is not very important for Gustav, but Choir is my go-to for that. When leveling up on Sylvie, my level 2 I tend to go for target shooting. This makes the killing of a boss significantly easier because that's where I struggle the most. Elven Agility is useful and there are builds out there for it, but not for me. Then I go for Range Mastery to make my range attacks cost 1 less. There's no downside to that. And the most important of all is Double Shot, which gives you a free version of the last range attack you play, which is incredible, so you can just do loads and loads of damage. After that we go for Eternal Bond just to make the pet attack everyone instead of just the back person. As you progress through the game and through Act 3 and Act 4, you want to look out some of these cards. Ideally a Battle Shout on Magnus is useful. A yellow Battle Plan is really useful for both Bree and Magnus because it lets you cycle and it is really handy to help you set up a good turn 1. Challenging Shout or any other last ditch legendary defense card is really good to pick up on Magnus as you get later and later into the game. If you have to, you can put it on Bree instead, but for the final boss you need some sort of taunt or defense cards. Enrages are also fantastic, you can't have enough of those. They pay for themselves and just cycle you through your deck really easily. The Grinding Wheel is also really good to pick up on both Magnus and Bree because it lets you buff Sylvie with 12 stacks of Sharp for 3 mana, or 4 mana, sorry. Or 3 mana if you use Bree's level up ability to make things cheaper. You could pick up a Ground Slam in the early game if you don't have enough Piercing Howls. It maybe get rid of it by the end of Act 2 because it's too expensive, but it does help you put those vulnerable stacks on. You could maybe pick up more Helping Hands in Act 1. You shouldn't try to have more than about 3. 3 is about enough of them, but that'll do for, helping the team get to where it needs to get to. And similar with Intimidate, 3 or 4 is about the amount that you want. You can go more, you can go less, but it's all about the Piercing Howls. They're the most effective card for debuffing the enemy. And here we are, Piercing Howls. Yep, the yellow Piercing Howl, try and get as many of them as you can until about Act 4, when maybe you can slow down when you get to the final levels, but 4 or 5 of them should be enough to just make sure you're always slowing the enemy and putting maximum vulnerable stacks on them. But that's sort of what you're looking for, really. And Sharpens, yeah, you can have another Sharpen, but once you get the Grinding Wheel, you can get rid of these Sharpens. As long as, you've got enough mana, they're not really a problem to have.
On Gustav, you want to pick up about 5 Chant of Accuracy should be enough, especially with your Encore. That should be just about all you need, and the Bree and Magnus will have their Sharpens. Deflect is also another card that helps you get rid of your rubbish cards like Shiv, so there's no real downside to picking them up. I don't think you need another Detection, one is usually enough. A really good card is Find Weakness. If you upgrade it to the blue Find Weakness, it lets you basically have another Intimidate, but once you burn down all of Gustav's cards, it's nice to have a Find Weakness that you can play every single turn. Setup is also another card just like Deflect, but it's slightly better than Deflect because you can organize cards, so having a blue setup is really useful as well. Smoke Bomb is a card you want to have by Act 4. It's a get out of jail free card if you know you can't beat a fight in one turn. You play Smoke Bomb on Gustav's turn and make sure you vanish or stealth at the end of Sylvie's turn. That way everyone can skip a turn, not take any damage, and you can go finish off the enemy with a little bit of ease. Gustav burns most of his cards on turn 1, and by turn 2 or turn 3, if you somehow manage to get to it, he's just putting on detections and find weaknesses if you have it. When building cards on Sylvie, Adrenaline is fantastic. You want to have maybe 2 or 3 of them by the end of the game. This is because you can just keep pumping out damage the more mana she has. Barrage is a legendary card if you can find it. It is your best single target damage move in the game, but I find maybe I only find it in 1 in every 4 runs. If you can't find your Barrage, there are alternatives instead. Last Reward is another legendary card that's fantastic. You want to go for a yellow Last Reward because that means that you can use it to find your double shot again. So you can do volley, so you can do double shot, volley, Last Reward, double shot, volley, and then do another volley after that. So it's another double shot is how I'd tend to think of it. Poison Spray is the alternative to Barrage if you can't find it. You go for the yellow upgrade to make sure it costs 2, and it is your best mana to damage ratio card outside of Barrage. So try and make sure you get 2 or 3 of these by the end of Act 4. You can look for Vanishes by Act 2 and Act 3. I use a blue Vanish to replace my Camouflages because it costs 0 mana and it gives you 100% extra damage. As you carry on, you can use Volley in Act 3 and Act 4 to replace your multi-shot, and that will get you through most of the game. So you can get rid of both your multi-shots and just use your volley and double shots. If you get very lucky, you can find a Rain of Arrows. It is a purple card, so it is quite likely to find, or you could just buy it, and this can be used to replace your volley. When looking for items during your run, the most powerful item in the game is Tempest for Sylvie. You find it by buying the Sack of Grain in Act 1, then navigating to the red zone and staying along the top and handing that Sack of Grain to the Harpies. It may not be the best route for getting the highest score, but it is an awesome weapon. Another item, if you're lucky enough to find it, is Power Coil, which lets you get up to 20 stacks of Powerful, thereby meaning you can have 300% damage on turn 1 if you get the right stuff in the right order. So I hope you've enjoyed this team comp guide. This video was recorded before patch 1.0.1e, where we expect there to be quite significant nerfs to this build because all of the top leaderboards are held by this build. But I think the spirit of the build is still valid, so I hope you still find some value on this in the future. If you have any questions or queries, let me know below. Feel free to like, subscribe, or leave a comment. Thank you for watching. We hope you've enjoyed it. Stay tuned for more Across the Obelisk content, and I'll see you on the next one. Thank you for watching, and goodbye.